Ready?
Ready.
Everybody ready? All right, so I'll call the regular select board meeting of Tuesday, July 25th to order. And first order of business is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded.
I think we have an additional
We have
item.
an additional item. I have an item 4A, which is amended outside consumption permit for Otter Creek Brewing. Are there any other changes? Hearing none, all in favor of the amended agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, next is approval of the minutes of the July 11th Select Board meeting.
I did not see the minutes. Did you? I
You
saw
didn't
them.
see them.
They're in there.
I'll make a motion to, well, actually, do we want to do changes first?
No?
No.
Let's get a
Okay.
motion to
Motion
approve
to
first.
approve the minutes?
Second.
So moved and seconded, and changes.
Line number 148. It says shows, and it should be just show, not the plural. But that was the only thing I could find.
Oh,
missed
right,
that one.
yes. Okay, we have a typo, other than that?
Just a different
Any other recommended changes? So, all in favor of the minutes with the small amendment, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, and you have me as an abstention,
And I'm going to stay abstaining as well.
and Nick as an abstention.
I think we were sharing the same
We
story
were
in different
both,
places.
yes, we were both having fun traveling. I think I was in O'Hare, stuck for the night, and you were
In Dulles and in Albany.
in Dawson, oh, yes.
So,
Citizen comments. We have an opportunity for anybody who has something that is not otherwise on the agenda. Okay, everybody's here for agenda items. So then we'll go on to 4A, which is the Otter Creek Brewing outside consumption permit amendment. Kathleen sent this out to us during the day. If you didn't have a chance to look at it, it was basically to add some of the grassy area. Yes, please come forward, that'd be great. And so maybe you can just explain the change.
Sure, we were just looking, I'm Tim Brown, this is Michaela Shea, we're both employees at Otter Creek Brewing. We were just looking to expand the consumption permit for the outside area. We're not going to increase the number of people or anything, we just want to include some of the grassy areas so we can include some lawn games like cornhole and put some Adirondack chairs out there so people can sit and enjoy a beer outside,
With their dogs as well. Adding
Dog friendly.
dog friendly.
I was just in Bar Harbor for the week, last week for a meeting, and I was amazed at how dog friendly every place was, and it was well received by tourists and people
Yeah.
that were traveling there,
So we
so.
have that dog park now too, so it's a great way to
Yeah,
mingle the two together.
okay, so, any questions?
I'll move. Well, hang on, it said that the number hasn't changed. What is the number?
The number for our total number is 90. We have 50 inside and 40 outside seats.
Okay.
We're well below that number at this point, though. We only have a total of 24 seats on the patio.
Okay,
So we're really not looking to increase that number any.
okay. Did you have anything else, Susan? No, I'm just thinking about it from a monitoring standpoint. It's harder to have a wider open space to,
Mhm.
you know, how you were gonna change some of your protocols, just to make sure you're keeping an eye on everybody.
Keeping an eye on people. Yep. There's a couple of places where we're going to put some temporary fence across the corner of the building and across the end where the split rail fence meets the hedgerow.
Okay.
So it's in the area that's visible from the patio anyways, so
Okay.
the wait staff outside will be able to keep an eye on most of that area.
Okay.
Looks like you can see the grassy knoll from your vantage point.
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right, Motion?
I'll move that we authorize our manager to sign the grant agreement. Oh, not grant, I'm sorry. To approve the expansion, the change in the permit.
Second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is the grant agreement for Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Recreation Communities Caring for Canopy Grant.
Leslie is here.
Hi, yeah, please. Hi, Leslie.
Hi. So we had we had asked for 3,000 and we were granted 2,310, I believe. That's the good news, that we were granted the money, and now we need to work with the Department of Public Works and see how they want to use the money.
Okay, any questions of Leslie on the grant? If you remember, I forget what, April 11th meeting, she presented to us and we approved the submission of the grant, and it's come back. We requested 3,000, we got 2,310, and the in-kind match is staff time is what we're given. If there's no questions, then I would entertain a motion.
Do you have a timeline for the project?
So it has, I think the parameter is it needs to be done within the year of 2017. There's a date. I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, but there is a specified date, but you have 1 year to do it. We had two portions to the grant. One was training or DPW workers on pruning and maintenance best practices, and if there were other funds left over to work on the town green for pruning. And it's possible only one portion of the proposal will be done based on the reduced funds.
It has to be done, it looks like it has to be executed by the end of July in 2018.
Okay.
And it's staff hours plus volunteer hours if, the tree committee ad hoc tree committee would be very willing to work on any of this with DPW, and that we were hoping we would also be able to participate in the training.
So it sounds like the training is your priority.
I think the focus has been on maintenance this year,
Oh.
yeah, on trying to maintain all the resources that have gone into planting trees, and now trying to catch up with maintaining and having a more knowledgeable volunteer and staff base for pruning and maintenance.
So I'd be happy to make the motion to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the grant agreement with the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation for the Communities Caring for Canopy Grant.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing no further questions. All in favor of the motion to support and have the town manager sign the grant agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the Addison County Transportation Resources Bus Hub relocation discussion. And act on the recommendation from ACTR and our relocation working group and the infrastructure committee. So we're, I think,
cohesive committee, we can't decide who.
Someone's got to come to the front.
so I think both Jen and Susan, it's your working group and the infrastructure committee, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Do you want to You guys did a great job, so.
Yeah, so we previously thought that we wouldn't be able to come to consensus on a location and that you'd have to make a decision between a couple locations, but we were able to, figure it all out, and we came up with one location and one design that works reasonably well for everyone. No location's ever gonna be perfect, but this seems like the best option. So, we brought it to the infrastructure committee. They also looked at it, and, the next step would be for the select board to select this as the location to proceed with, to go through the permitting and design process. So we would get an engineer next, and the engineer would design it, or Actor would, and then bring it to the DRB to review the details. But this is Academy Street that you're seeing here. College Street is up above, and the park is to the right. We had talked about using the parking lot for a while at the last meeting, but the parking lot isn't owned by the town, it's just used by the town, so this is a simpler option for now. We can always see how that pans out in 3 or 4 years. But this design shows that the curb would be brought back a little bit to get the buses out of the lane of traffic. It also shows the passenger shelter being relocated to this location. We had the college at our last meeting, and they asked if we could work with them to try to figure out how to move the passenger shelter further off the sidewalk, like where it's shown now, actually, is it moved back a little further, so that when people are waiting for the bus, they're not blocking pedestrians on the sidewalk. And what's shown there, just for purposes of explanation, are those two little yellow circles are flashing beacons. We're probably gonna have to install flashing beacons somewhere, either there or perhaps further up at the crosswalk, whatever the engineer recommends, for the safety of the passengers. And we're also going to try to work together with Actor to figure out how to keep the flow of traffic running smoothly, so that there's as few interruptions to their schedule as possible. Part and parcel with this, Actor's gonna need to add a couple of stops in the downtown area to compensate for the loss of the Merchants Row location. So they'll be back to work with us on those things as we move forward too. But this seems like a really good launching point for continuing to collaborate in the future.
And that's what the infrastructure committee discussed, the same thing, and recognized there's still some things to be worked out, but that this was a good way to move forward, and certainly supported this over the other two locations, so.
Yeah, that was a very good summary, and I think it's a good solution, and I hope that we can provide the stops that Actor needs downtown, because I do think it's a resource we're gonna increasingly rely on.
Well, and what you guys talked about was having that shuttle going on that would be a great way to sort of work out what the sites may or may not be, would be good. Right, but it was a good opportunity, so.
The shuttle is a 3-week venture. It's difficult to change behavior in 3 weeks. But
Right.
It's something that we could use for analysis.
It's better than not having that, so, 3 weeks of trying to, at least working from your standpoint of, is it a good place to drop people off? And
So if I may, I'll just interject a bit. We did talk about the downtown stops and the need for them. Transportation principles say that you need to be in the center of town. Many of our passengers want to go to the post office, the bank, Carol's, different merchants. They walk. We can't service every neighborhood in Middlebury, so a lot of the school children have walked down to Merchants Row. Ask them to walk further to Academy Street. They might choose not to use our service. So we need those downtown stops to make the system reconfigure work. We're most concerned about Bristol and Virgins. They're on the northern side. We have done some preliminary analysis on those routes, and we know that we're going to be adding time to them. We'll probably lose a full cycle on that route. It's important to have that feeder, accessibility, convenient times for passengers. So those downtown stops, as Jen mentioned, we came to some preliminary consensus in the working group in the agreement to work further. The 2 spots on Merchants Row we won't need anymore, so you gain those back. So there's some trade-offs that we'll be looking at going forward to make our system reconfigure. eight-figure work for the passengers.
I just think it's a very nice solution, and I agree with you. I think the downtown stops are an essential part of it. But when you put it all together, it seems to me I'm very pleased with it, and I congratulate the committee on coming to this consensus, which makes it easier for us. And my own preference at first was the parking lot, but I was talking to Chief Hanley, and he refuted my arguments, so I had nowhere to go. But but it was better than him arresting me. But in any case, I think that the solution is really a good one, and I'm very happy to support it.
Yeah, those spaces are very those spaces are very underutilized.
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, they are. I mean, I go by them every day, and I never see a car in them. So.
But speaking on behalf of ACTRA, I would like to thank Jen for bringing the group through some very contentious meetings as well as Public Works. We all had our opinions and we were able to come to some good consensus. So it was a very worthwhile working group. We've got some work going forward. I think in the working group, we all agreed that the next 3 years is a great opportunity to look at some of these parking and other issues that Middlebury has. And I just thank Jen for her leadership in working, keeping us on task.
Thanks to the select board for creating the working group. I think it was a really helpful model that maybe we can use again if we get in a pickle on something. It was helpful to have all the right people at the table to work it all out at the same time.
I personally, I think this is a great idea. And I admit I was a strong advocate of the South Pleasant Street, thinking back a while ago, but I can see the problems that have emerged with that. This strikes me as incredibly great opportunity in many ways. One is that kind of makes it more accessible to this large population base up here, and hopefully that students will, you'll see an increased ridership with that. I don't know if, I'm kind of assuming that flyers and information go to the students as they start that says this service is available,
Yes.
so that they become aware of that. The other thing is also the area along Weybridge Street is often some of the most underutilized parking that I've seen around town. And so, while I don't have a quantifiable number, I suspect some of the current South Pleasant spots are being used as commuter parking. So suddenly this gives an opportunity to shift some of that over here and free up this space, especially during the downtown construction period. So that'll be helpful. And I'm assuming also that the Burlington commuter buses will be stopping there as well?
Yes.
Okay, and will Vermont Transit move to that location as well, or?
I would not think so.
Okay, but overall, I just think this is a great direction. I applaud all of you for coming to this agreement. I'm sure it was not an easy task, but that's why we put a bunch of professionals in a room and we professionally find a solution. So thank you for the effort. This is really good, and I look forward to seeing how it works.
Any questions from the select board? I'm going to go to the No? Okay. Yes.
I'd like to add something in the perspective of will the college students use it? For 4 years, I stood across the street from Monroe and waited for the Weybridge route at that point. I would say something to the students. They'd be walking up the street carrying bags and shawls and all that. I said, do you know there's a bus that leaves downtown every half hour for campus? No. And that quote, no. I said, yes, it is. Well, apparently they get, or used to get anyway, a schedule in the beginning of the year with the new students, but it immediately goes into circular file. So, and I even approached the campus, say, please mention the kids that the rides are available. You don't have to jump in your car and drive downtown. There's bus service to campus. So the communication to the students is not as good as it could be.
Thank you for that, Irene. We did, thanks to your point of view, we have realized that, and we did some greater outreach this past year. and our marketing will continue on campus. No, we did listen to you and.
Actually, we all do.
Right.
But also, I'd like to wonder why thank you, Heather, wonder why the passenger shelter is so far down the street, because as a daily, 2 times a day transfer, if the weather is ugly, it's awfully nice to have a shelter to stand in, which was the case on Merchants Road. But if it's way down there at the end of the block,
I wondered about that, too.
it's a little bit, I mean, why
Little
not
far.
in the middle?
Don't get wedded to the concept. It's a concept. The
Okay.
professionals, design professionals will make recommendations, but that location was in collaboration with the college, who has said that they would give up some land. The primary reason was to get it off the sidewalk, so that in that area where people are crossing, there wouldn't be as much congestion. But everything on there is a concept. It will probably look very much like that, but we're going to leave it up to the transportation design
Right,
professionals.
so Bill, could you just walk us through the next steps if this is approved today by the select board, and what you see as a timeline, potential timeline?
The RFP went out, so we chose RSG and Otter Creek. We will not put out another RFP to keep this moving. We've been in contact with them through the process. This concept was sent to the state to take a look at it, to see how much they would fund. Haven't heard back from Joel Perigo, but this does not create a lot of construction. There's a lot of advantages to this design. It keeps us out of the flow of traffic. So I don't expect the state will have a lot to take away from what we put there. Once you approve it, I have a working scope of work that will go out in the next 2 days. Hopefully streamline it. RSG has been in conversation with the state. They understand that the state does not need to have as much oversight as we originally thought. So we expect to keep on task, and what we talked about on the earlier timeline by Thanksgiving should be achievable. The biggest thing is the system reset. We've started working on it. But we strongly feel that by Thanksgiving, if not before, we should be able to move.
Okay.
And we'll have to build a DRB process into that too.
Yeah.
So if you can have a site plan to us, by early October, say at the last, at the latest, then we can use that month to have a DRB hearing, take more public input, incorporate that into the final design.
Yeah, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
We'd want it to before then, because we get construction, we want to actually have buses stopping there in November before snow flies, so.
Yeah, it's in everybody's interest to move it forward as quickly as we can,
Yeah.
knowing that we have stops that we have to.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And that is the best location, because this is the center of Middlebury right here, right? Hey, Two Brothers, that's the center of Middlebury. Bus stop would be the center of town, best spot for it.
Thank you for the endorsement. No, I think everybody seems to be happy with it. Are there any other comments, questions? So can we get a motion then?
I'd be happy to move motion to the Select Board to enforce the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation to approve the Academy Street proposal for the temporary relocation of the Actor Transit Hub, as agreed by the Actor Working Group.
I'll second that.
Okay, any last questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of endorsing the Infrastructure Committee's recommendation signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Bill, Jen, everybody, thank you for working through this. I think it was a very productive process, and in the end, I think we got a better solution, so. And Jen, now with the update on local motions, technical assistance program.
Yeah. So, we've had a lot of fun with another working group that we have, the Local Motion Technical Assistance Working Group. And this is another sort of multi-faceted working group composed of staff and police and fire. And Laura's there with a lot of her bike ped people from the, I always want to say the
Middlebury
Safe Routes to
Safe
Schools
Routes,
Committee,
right.
but Safe Routes. And Claire's been there from Regional Planning. We had Local Motion come to the town, and they brought 2 representatives from Alta Planning and Design with them. And they visited various locations around town that we had pinpointed as a working group as, safety hotspots. The engineers produced some interesting conceptual engineering plans that we'll figure out how to use as we go forward if we're working with the infrastructure committee to identify priority locations or think about grant funds. The other aspect of that is Local Motion created some conceptual designs for pop-up demonstration projects where they can bring down their trailer from Burlington, which is full of, not cones, but portable bollards. Well, you've read the whole equipment list that goes in the trailer. So they have all these neat portable items that they can use to create demonstration projects to show the public how an improvement might look and how it functions before it's actually done. So it's kind of some guerrilla urbanism, as planners might say. It's just sort of a fun, different kind of way of looking at projects ahead of time. So we met and we have a tentative schedule. They're going to drop off the trailer. I can't even understand my own email here. That's why I got my little reminder.
August 18th.
Thank you. So they're dropping off the trailer on August 18th, and we'll have it until September 8th, at which time they have to take it up to Shelburne to do demo projects there in September. So we're going to have a meeting on Thursday and try to develop a plan for outreach. And then Laura is going to be in charge of kind of getting the volunteers together, and we're going to work with the volunteers to create the different demo projects. We'll be working with police, fire, and DPW to make sure they look safe and won't impact functionality on the roads. And then we'll have a public meeting and some survey instruments probably afterward to try to figure out what the public reaction was to those demonstration projects. We're also working with Jim Gish through this process so that we can coordinate with him and his railroad activities, and so we can borrow some neat outreach ideas from him when we create our outreach plan. So he'll be there on Thursday too. So right now, I guess I'm just asking for a general conceptual endorsement from the select board to start making these plans for your right-of-way, and also to sign the local technical assistance agreement with Local Motion.
Questions?
I only had one favor to ask. I know the infrastructure committee will be fascinated by this and will want to do lots of drive-bys. Can you do like a quick summary of your schedule of what the projects are for them?
Yeah.
And then when you're done, come talk to us about what you found, because
Okay.
I can see that being a fascinating, juicy conversation we'd love to have.
Yeah.
that would be fun. And then that way we're sort of in the same sort of timeline with you. If things do come back for funding, the excitement's already there.
Yep,
So
that'd be great. Maybe August 3rd, that would get us in front of you before we actually head out to the street.
Even if you wanted to do a memo and you're busy, just to have that too. But if you
Well,
want
if
to
you've
come,
got the time, we'll drop in.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great. It's always exciting. So this kind of stuff gets us excited too. So there's no money. There's no money yet.
Well, some of these are relatively cheap, and if they, like this bump outs on Merchants Row and Main Street, if that reduces if that mitigates the risk of somebody not being seen and being hit or something, I mean, and it's a traffic calming, while not having to put up stoplights or something that changes the visual appeal
the
of the
idea.
downtown, it's a great idea.
Yep.
That's cool.
And if that works, we ought to look at that intersection that everybody
Yep.
keeps talking to us about, Cross Street, South Pleasant. I don't know if you got ideas. It'd be kind of interesting if there was a way with a bump out that you could bring cars out a little further so they have better view, sight lines and stuff.
We should ask Caitlin about that before she cuts us loose.
We did.
Oh, we did?
But we will
Ask again.
Anyway, so
persist, yes.
it looked rather interesting. If there's, yes.
So, since Dan is here, Dan, what is your take on bump outs from a, DPW perspective and snow plowing, maintenance?
Well, simply, the plow drivers don't like them. That's always been the positive business. It's hard to get, when you plow up against the curb line, you have to pull out, you're gonna deposit snow where the truck pulls out. So, that's just reality. So,
Yeah.
it's a decision whether you decide to do that, then those guys will have to take care of that, but they are a problem.
So I wanted you to hear it from Dan and not from me, but that's what I suspected he was gonna say, and my only thought is that we just need to recognize that and include it in costs, cause I think it adds time to winter maintenance. That's my only thought, is that it's kind of a hidden cost, if we consider doing these things. And the only other thing that I think about when I look at, I fear sometimes that people think I don't want bikes and people to be safe, but I do. But I also want the merchants on Merchant Road to be able to get their deliveries. And when I look at this picture, as a driver of a commercial vehicle, I think that makes that right turn a little bit of a nightmare. So I just, want to think about,
That's a good
we've got to
point.
get delivery trucks in there. We've got to service those downtown businesses. I also don't want to make it so difficult that we make it challenging for those people trying to get deliveries. So it's a balancing act. Nothing's going to be perfect. So I'm just trying to bring up some of the other perspectives that I think of. So, but the nice thing about this is we try it and we see what happens. And I'd be interested to see what the cone loss is during this demonstration.
Well, there's ways to do a bump out where you can still drive commercially over it. The bump out can be visual and tapered so that you can drive over it, not cutting tires and stuff, but while at the same time presenting that visual stimulation for a driver that there's something that's narrowing.
Right.
So
I do that in Burlington a lot. I always knew when the plow was coming down my street when I lived in Burlington, because it would be driving over the bump outs. It would boom, 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 but it works.
that they're tapered down, so for plowing, and, I don't think we're looking to put a bump out everywhere, but there are some
Yeah. There's
problem
good
areas
places
that
for
we've
them.
been wrestling with for a number of years, and we looked at putting lights and different things.
I can just see that.
Picture of where, what these bump outs, where they
Yes.
are and what-
I just like that on the Excel spreadsheet, the cone loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming that when people choose to drive over those planters and those cones, then we're gonna have to replace them, so.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
It's also hard to tell from that drawing,
It's the temporary, it's temporary.
that's a European bump out there.
It's true, and that's part of what we're charged with during the pop-up demo, is fixing that or watching it and maintaining it.
And the plan now is to have monitors at these locations, if we can get enough volunteer hours together to try to get input from people in real time, and then we'll also have surveys people can fill out afterward. I'd like to survey the property owners in the immediate vicinity too, to find out what the impacts were to businesses and if they notice people slowing down. So that's at the end of Merchants Row, of course, where we have problems with crossings.
And
This would
then-
be,
I do think it's a good idea that we try
this would be
and
paint to
see
square
how
up these
it
corners.
works before we do anything permanent, so I do like that idea, so.
This would be paint to square up these corners so that it's not, so that drivers aren't taking such a wide turn out of Merchants Row.
Where's the existing, those will be
Uh,
on the existing curb?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that,
Here's the existing curb here.
that a good designer could make them so that they wouldn't be so inhibiting to trucks and yet serve the purpose. I mean, you don't need something, look at a roundabout. I mean, that works very well in that sense. So I would think that if we found someone with a little bit of imagination, and certainly Jen has plenty of it, that we could end up with a design that would work, achieve the purpose of the safety, and yet at the same time, when trucks, and I think you make an important point, you don't want delivery trucks not to be able to deliver, because that's sort of the lifeline of the downtown retailers. So that has to be taken into account. But I can't imagine that there isn't a way of designing these things that they can be functional as well as create safety. I mean, I think.
So they would be in place 1 to 2 weeks, 2 weeks maximum.
So if someone's biking down from the post office, they will have to go out into the travel lane more because they have to go around these bump, if they're on a bike coming down.
They would be anyway, because it's a share the road, Sharrow marked
Yeah,
passageway.
You're taking away how many feet of room from, I mean, they have to, you know, if I'm on a bike, I want to be as close to the curb as possible, and I'm forcing them to go around these bump outs into closer to cars.
Sometimes you can get off and walk your bike. I mean, I
That-
realize that's, I mean, that shouldn't be a hardship for someone who can ride a bicycle. And I think that sometimes we,
Well, I just think it decreases safety instead of increasing.
well, I think getting off and walking it is the
Well, the
safest way.
It's not gonna be any wider than some of those cars parked if you watch down through there.
There are cars parking there now.
They're not there, but, okay, so can we move on, please? I'd like to entertain a motion on this.
I'll move that we authorize the town manager, Kathleen, to sign the agreement for use of Local Motion's pop-up project, mobile support unit and equipment.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The next is actually the accountability and signing for the pop-up project mobile support unit. So one is just experimenting with the concept, and we've approved that. Now we need to authorize the town manager to actually sign the agreement to use the pop-up project mobile support unit, trailer, and equipment, and then our accountability and requirement to replace stuff with it.
Well, you said it pretty well, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any other questions? And this is just an experiment, and, you know, we're, if we find that we don't like it, well, hopefully we will learn from it, but it's not a cut and stone thing, so. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, Heather, Economic Health Task Force.
Thanks, Jen.
So, what would you like me to do? Do you want me to read over
Um,
our recommendations? Do you want me,
Why don't you just review each point on your recommendations and see, point by point, we'll see if there's any questions. Let's
Okay.
do it that way.
okay? So can I first, I just want to say a big thank you to all the members of the committee. I think I did a really good job of getting a good group together with some different opinions. So we didn't have a, complete consensus on the agreement, but I think that actually indicates a good process and good conversation. So I just want to thank all the members, and I should have written them down so I could have said them on camera, but anyway, thank you. A couple of them are here. Dave Cole is here in the front row, and Bill Townsend behind him. Nancy Malcolm is here, and of course Nick. I think that's, so thank you, and a big thank you to Kathleen for helping me, and to Beth for doing an awesome job on our minutes. So anyway, thank you. So, first recommendation was to not at this time reinstate the 1 cent tax per $100 of assessed property value used to support the MBDF, or the Middlebury Business Development Fund. So we just supported the decision that the select board had already made, and decided to continue that recommendation. RJ is also here too, he was on the committee. Any questions about that? Okay. 2 was to establish a Middlebury Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund. Our recommendation was to take remaining Middlebury Business Development Fund money and combine it with the Community Development Block Grant money that we'd already discussed a little bit about setting up a revolving loan fund. But our recommendation would be to take the remaining balance of the MBDF money and combine it to make a larger pot of money for the revolving loan fund.
And you're showing around 200,000, is that tracking right, Kathleen? Okay.
Any other questions about that one? No. 3, create an economic development committee to review applications to the revolving loan fund, monitor economic conditions, and analyze local economic strategies. The recommendation would be to meet at least quarterly, review loan applications, and also annually review economic indicators and trends, and make a recommendation to the select board annually of any changes to these recommendations, based on whatever trends and stuff is emerging. So that we would do that on an annual basis and not on every 5-year basis. Any questions? All right. Yeah.
Did you get into the ideas of who should make up that committee, or how many?
We did, we talked a little bit about it. We put generally consist of community members with a background in business, economic development, and/or finance. I think we had talked, although we didn't record it, I think we had talked about somewhere around 5, no more than 7 members on that committee.
And that would be the same committee that would review? There were different committees that would review the revolving loan fund act.
No, our recommendation would be the same. And it really, we do have now an MBDF advisory committee, which I'm assuming goes away with the MBDF. And we've had the task force, which I'm hoping maybe some people are interested in continuing. So even though I hate suggesting additional committees and volunteer time, I think we already kind of have it. It's just naming it, and the responsibilities of it are just changing.
And what happened with having the Addison County Economic Development Core review projects? So,
Are you talking about the loan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think under, and I may have skipped over, under 2, we had seek assistance from the ACEDC in developing the framework and guidelines that will govern the revolving loan fund, along with the ongoing operation and administration of the revolving loan fund. But the actual evaluating of the applications would, I think the select board may ultimately have a decision on that, but let me say. Anyway, I think there may be some details that still need to be worked out on who actually approves, but I think the committee should be the first place that those loan applications come for vetting, and hopefully have a strong committee with good financial, business, economic development background to review those applications, and then go forward there based on the guidelines that we set for the revolving loan fund.
I'm wondering, I mean, I
I'm
think it's a
wondering.
good idea to have a committee, and I'm in favor of that. But I'm thinking that if we create this committee, we should do it entirely new and then advertise and just start fresh. I mean, it may be that some of the people who were on the Middlebury Business Development Committee would come forward, and it would look like, you know, they're certainly the best. But I think it's a new venture, and I see developing a strategy. However, I'm far from an expert on that, but it would seem to me that would be something rather important, that this could again create a lot of enthusiasm for economic development in town. If we said we've created this committee, we would like, you know, people to come forward and submit their names, and then, I mean, we may get people we've not thought of and who may really be.
I
Just
think
terrific.
that's the recommendation in here.
Is
I
that what
see it
you're-
as a new
Yeah,
committee.
a new committee, and there would be
Yes.
we'd start over. Okay, all right, well, that's fine then.
Although I'm not opposed to having people that have been on the MBDF or
No,
the
no,
Economic Health
no,
Task Force applying for the committee, yeah.
No, that's right,
Yeah.
right.
Were there other questions about this? I guess that, you know, the point is that maybe in a year's time, these recommendations, you know, some of them don't work anymore. And they might annually want to be adjusted in large or in
Right.
small areas,
Yeah.
and we should maybe
Yeah.
do that annually, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other about 4? All right, 5. Create, were you gonna say
No,
something?
That was
That was 3.
three.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Nothing about 4 either.
Was I trying to skip ahead?
A little bit.
Yeah, you actually were, but
You're trying to keep me on schedule is what you're trying to do.
All of a sudden, what's
Appreciate
number
it.
7?
Any other questions? All right, 4, town website. So we recognize that the town website has the potential to be a key driver for business support and should show that the town is business friendly and helpful. And we recommend revising the town website to include business support and resource section, permitting information, and revolving loan information. And I know this might be an area that needs possibly some additional work. I know that Kathleen and Chris have done a great job of revising the website and making changes to it. And we do have Experience Middlebury, but I don't think it's very well utilized. And for me personally, want to see when I go to the front page of the website, a tab at the top that says something about business and then leads us here. And now we sort of have some of those links in a tab that says community. But for me, that if I'm wanting to come to Middlebury and consider Middlebury and look for more information, I really want to see something somewhere about business and where to go from there. And I know Kathleen has maybe some different opinions on that, and the website being more of a government, you know, resource type thing. So, but I want to utilize our website as a good I want to make sure that we're utilizing that the best we possibly can in this particular area.
In the survey that we did, was there stuff that people asked for that they didn't feel they could get easy access? Things that we would say, yeah, these are things that ought to be on the website?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I don't know that we really asked that question.
So it might be something we would do.
I think
with-
this,
There were some things that had come up,
yeah,
like
I
your zoning
think,
regs and your.
oh, Robin's here now. I didn't see you come in. Dave Cole in the front here had recommended an idea of an help desk. And this was sort of a pared down version of maybe a help desk that doesn't necessarily require like a staff position, So that's what our recommendation is. Other questions?
Can some of the money that was going to be set aside go to updating the website?
Certainly.
Okay.
I think we had considered that possibility at one point in our, discussion, when we thought there might be more MBDF money than there was.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some, discussion about how big is this website thing? And,
Right.
and are we talking about a redesign of like the Experience Middlebury? Like Experience Middlebury to me doesn't point businesses, like the idea I'm trying to get for businesses and information to businesses. It seems to be missing that piece. Not that the
Yeah.
Experience Middlebury doesn't provide a great
Overview of what Middlebury
You're
is.
looking for a
Yeah.
dedicated page with links.
right.
Right, okay.
But it be more about more business economic development driven.
Right.
There's maybe a tab to our new website. And then, but one of the things that you're talking about sounds like, as far as maybe just have an ability for them to fill out a form and send in a request for information or something, or, anyways, it sounds like, I think I'm tracking with it, but it's something that we would have to flush out,
Yes.
take some staff time,
Potentially, yes, or committee time, or
something.
it could be something that needs some additional time.
Certainly, people spend more time on the web now than they have.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions on 4? Okay. 5 was create a local permitting brochure similar to the state permitting brochure that can be downloaded and picked up at various locations. Robin had an example of the state brochure that makes it very clear what you need to do when needing a state permit, and we thought it would be an acceptable idea to create something similar for Middlebury, so someone coming in wanting to do something, they would know what they needed to do and who they needed to contact in a brochure form. It could also, be added to the website in digital form. Any questions on that? 6, use surplus local option sales tax revenue to fund and leverage additional funds for infrastructure projects directly related to economic development. Our recommendation was to set aside 1/2 of the annual excess revenue generated by the local option sales tax, not already designated for debt service or maintenance of the Cross Street Bridge for economic development infrastructure improvement projects. And the proposed committee would consult with the infrastructure committee to develop criteria for qualifying projects and should create and maintain a list of potential projects for select board consideration. So I think we're recommending that the select board move ahead on determining what to do with that extra money.
I was gonna say, that's
We're-
part of our plan of work.
We're asking you to move that ahead, and we're making a recommendation on what you do with it,
Yeah. Good.
okay? Any thoughts, comments? No? Okay.
Where's that on our retreat chart of,
Hang on a second.
So we've arranged with Aaron Guyette, the engineer for the Cross Street Bridge, to prepare a maintenance plan to help give us a better indication of what surplus is above the debt service.
It's number 5.
I knew
Carry it with me
it
always.
was fairly high. I mean, 5 doesn't sound very high, but you should see our list, so.
And then 7 was to continue to explore the option to create a tax increment financing district, which I think we're already moving in that direction. So I do have committee members here that I thank very much for coming, and I'm not sure if they want to add
Well,
any,
let's-
can they add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So, number
Robin?
one, we really appreciate you all spending time working through this, and it's, I think, near and dear to all of our hearts, because we do want Middlebury to thrive, and we know that it won't thrive if we don't have business growth, and I don't think we've nailed the right solution yet, and certainly we wanted to try something different, so this is sending us in a different direction. Thoughts on it, comments on your process and where you're at? Yes.
RJ, if you
Come on
want to,
forward, RJ, so that the people, because we do have cameras and
Yeah, I'd like to first state for the record, thank you to Heather for doing a really good job of bringing everyone together and corralling the herd of cats that was all of us. These recommendations have a lot of time and thought put into them, and I think that they are a good path forward, but at the same time, rules are always meant to be broken, and we should stay on top of economic development in Middlebury. Not that anyone's not going to, but as we do so, to say, is this working? Is this not working? And keep all of the economic development options that have been open for the last 20 years on the table as potential options to continue as we move forward. So I like the set of rules that we've come up with, but I also like the fact that there is a committee that can innovate when it comes to ideas as to maybe this is what's best for FY 2018, but maybe FY 2023 is going to need something completely different. And there's I want to make sure that fluidity is always available.
yeah.
So.
well said.
Thanks, RJ. Anyone else who's on the committee, or anybody, questions, comments? Select Board,
Do you want to add anything?
I do. First of all, I do want to give a lot of credit to Heather for where I think she showed very good leadership in this. I mean, you did a really good job in advancing this. And thanks to the committee members, there was a lot of good thought, obviously a lot of really good professional people involved. The reality is, I did not vote to support this. I was one of those who did not, largely because, the reality is there just wasn't enough time, I don't think, to do as effective of a job as really needed to be done. This is a complex issue, there's a lot to it, and it's not really fair to ask all of the people who contributed so much time to contribute more. We just ran out of time. I was actually hoping that we would have greater discussion on a strategy to move forward. This to me is a lot of parts, but it's not a plan. And so I was hoping we would have been able to do a little bit more of that. I really would have liked to have spent more time looking at what we have accomplished over the last 3.5 years and see what was working there. How do we advance things that were leads and directions that are potentially positive fruit? How do we do that? And this doesn't tell me how we can do that. I don't want to lose the momentum that has been built in some cases. It didn't look, I don't think, deep enough at the things that didn't work well and how we could have made them work better. So I'm really to me, the most important single part of this is item 3. And what's going to be very critical is that we do get the right blend of people, capabilities, knowledge, experience to really go at this fairly strong, to be able to tell us quite bluntly where we as a town need to improve, what we need to do, what the business community needs to do, and to keep track of trends, both for the existing businesses here that we want to keep strong, for compatible businesses that may exist, and for the emerging trends across the country. One of the things that I do have is a benefit to spending too much time on airplanes is I do get to see what other parts of the country are doing. And many of these ideas that up here, while they're good, they're not unique. And so what is it that we, as a small northern New England town, can do that's unique? How do we fit in the world? And how do we make ourselves better than the average? And so, while I appreciate the efforts that went into this, I think number 3 is to me, is the most important item in here. And I'd like to endorse it, but I feel like I'm just sort of endorsing average if I do, and I really want to endorse great. So, again, I appreciate the effort, and I agree with RJ, this is going to be dynamic. We have to really look at this hard, but we really have to stay on this. And I would have just liked to had a little more time. Well, actually, a fair bit more time. But again, thank you to everybody who participated. It was good effort for what was accomplished.
Bill?
I thank you. My name's
Bill,
Bill Townsend.
can you come forward?
My name's Bill Townsend. I work for J.P. Carrera and Sons, and I was a part of the committee. And I hadn't intended on saying anything, but I feel like I need to provide a response to what Nick said. And Nick shared his personal views, and so I can only say that what I'm going to say is reflective of my own perspective, and I'm not sure necessarily if it's shared by others. But I think what I see as the fallacy, and what Nick's saying is because some of us don't believe that we ran out of time and that this is a, put together solution simply because we needed to get something out the door. There's some of us that believe that this is pretty reflective of what we actually believe the town's role in economic development should be. And I say that from a perspective that it's my belief that an expectation that the town is going to be a municipality and the select board and the town management is what's going to be driving the difference between whether economic development in our town is successful or not is a little bit misguided. It actually is a lot misguided. And it should be more recognition that the people that are going to create economic development, make Middlebury different, are the people that are living and working on Main Street and Exchange Street that are already doing the things that are making Middlebury successful and thrive. And I think we're very fortunate in this community that we already have a select board and management that recognizes the value of economic development, that supports it, that has processes and people in place that enable it. And that's why whatever success we have had. I think it goes one step too far to then take that and think that you need to be more proactive than that. I think you're sort of found the sweet spot as it is, and I think that these recommendations are somewhat reflective of that, or are largely reflective of that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Bill.
you get a good taste of of the good extremes that I had to work with on this committee. So I think we had a good process because we had good discussions.
We actually sat next to each other quite often,
Yeah.
so,
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. It's important, I think, to have different views and to hear those different views and have a good process out of it. So.
It's the whole point.
I
mean, really.
So I'm gonna get in trouble for inviting you all.
No,
tonight.
I know we were invited, and you just didn't invite us. And Heather did do an amazing job because this was a diverse group, and I really thank you. You did a very good job. I think I agree with Bill that I didn't feel we ran out of time at all. And I think what the survey did for us is it showed that we are a wonderful community, and there's a lot of pride in this community. But what came through loud and clear is that we are also an aging community. We don't have a lot of people already here looking for jobs. We don't have housing for people to try to go out and recruit people and bring them in and have them, live here. We had, one of the things that came out was that there wasn't enough funding if we could be around to, or somehow fund these businesses, be it they growing or starting out, and that was where we came through with the funding thing. So we could do something with that. But we felt like we really can't control that what our population is now and the housing situation that we have and childcare. We have a shortage of childcare to then encourage people like that. So how could we encourage things that are already here and make them better? And I feel very comfortable with this. The other thing I'd like to say is, in all due respect, I think that this economic committee really doesn't need to have any select board member on it, because there's really not a person that fits what this is supposed to be doing. And I think I think you need to trust and to go out and find the people that should be on it. I certainly wouldn't have a clue who should be on it, and I wouldn't even begin to go there. But I think this is a real opportunity to bring in people to work on this. And the other thing that we talked about in the committee was that this committee that would be developed doesn't have to know everything. There are people in town that could be invited in. There are experts that could give information on trends, things that are going on. So there's a lot that could be done, but I don't think that you need to think that you have to be on this and taking the time to do it. So I'm just putting that out there. And I really do thank Heather for doing a great job.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
They're
So
gonna
now that
be-
we're all uninvited.
I mean, I think Nick is right that the committee is the key of this whole thing, but I think all the more reason to go ahead and I would like to see it start. I mean, I think there's an opportunity, I think, to move forward, and I think we should seize it and go ahead with it.
Victoria?
So the nuts and bolts question of a revolving loan fund. What, 200,000, is that enough to really provide assistance that may be needed? And how is it replenished if it's all given out in loans?
Because they pay it back.
Yeah.
A new one isn't available until it's repaid.
Robin could probably help us with that answer, Victoria. It's a good question, but she oversees something very similar.
This I'm happy to talk about. Robin Scheid from Addison County Economic Development. So we operate 5 revolving loan funds now, and
Can you talk up just a little bit more? Can you
speak up more. Okay, sure. So we operate about 5 revolving loan funds now, and we have been doing work with other communities to help them administer their revolving loan funds. So we have the infrastructure in place, and I've talked a little bit with Brian and some of you about us and Kathleen, possibly having ACEDC actually administer the loans, not make the loan decisions, but administer the loans, so that because we have the systems in place to do that, the software and all of that. So with a revolving loan fund, the question was around the size. We were thinking of, I think it says maybe around 200,000 we might have. Part of the criteria that the Economic Development Committee would determine is what the size, the minimum and the maximum size loan would be. And for a loan fund of 200,000, I would just off the top of my head say somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000. So you wouldn't give one $200,000 loan. You don't put all your eggs in one basket when you make loans. And so what we do find is that these things often take a while to get off the ground. If we announce a revolving loan fund next week, I don't think you're going to have 20 businesses at your door saying we want money. You'd have criteria for it, and it usually takes a while before businesses actually have a need that makes sense. The revolving loan funds that towns operate don't compete with banks. They're there to kind of fill the gap funding where a bank is willing to do so much, maybe ACEDC gets involved and does so much, and there's still some left over that the company needs financing for. And it has to be a viable business. I mean, the usual kinds of things when you think about. It's a higher risk level than a bank would have because it's kind of at the end of the line, but usually it's not the only one in there. But that would be for the town to decide. So what we've talked about is having perhaps having ACEDC, what we've done with the town of Heinsberg, is to help advise them on where the decision points are. Not tell them what the decisions are they have to make, but just say, here's the decision points, you decide how you want to do this, here's some of the pros and cons, you put together your loan criteria, and, you know, we can help you with documentation and work plans and what your criteria need to be, and, you know, share all the information we have with you. And then this committee would make the loan decisions, and then we could administer, send out invoices, collect the funds, et cetera, so. And you can always add to it. I mean, that's the other thing that we talked about, right?
So the repayment on the original community block grant is around 14,000 a year, Kathleen? So that, until that is paid off, that it does increase about 14,000 a year. And then the interest gained from making loans also goes back in. So although that's a modest growth, it does grow. And we could explore, the committee could also explore other ways to, you know, if we found next week that 20 businesses did want loans.
Right, there would be other
might
opportunities. I mean, you have other pockets that you could look at as a town, but no reason to put more money in than you need until you know what the real need is. So, because you don't want the money sitting there idle, if businesses, you know, aren't jumping right away at that. And so I can give you an example. ACEDC in 1998 borrowed $500,000 from the USDA Rural Development. That was one of our loan funds. We have lent over $2 million from that loan fund. So it's revolved so many times. So 4 times the amount that we borrowed, we've lent out.
Yeah.
So as the principal gets paid back and the interest gets paid back, we take a small amount of the interest for administrative fees, and then the rest of it helps to increase the revolving loan fund.
So you don't use all of the interest in your budget, you're using just a small amount, and the rest
We
of it goes
transfer,
back?
right. So we transfer a certain amount for administrative fees that go
Yeah.
into our operating account, and then the rest goes back into expanding the loan fund.
Okay. Thank you.
So, did that answer your question? Okay.
Very thoroughly. Yeah. Are there any other? I am, intentionally stayed out of that because I am very determined in that government is not a business creator. They do a poor job of it. So I would have been a very poor leader in that group. So I thank you for leading everybody through that process. I'm supportive. I tend to agree with Bill. I think government has a very strong role in enabling business, in ensuring infrastructure is there, the information, and that the mindset is there to support growth of a town. And you can either be pro or anti-growth. And if have a mindset and we're pro-growth and the information's out there and we support it, and our development and permitting team looks at things maybe and finds ways to make things work, as opposed to finding, I mean, the government can have a mindset, I'm going to shoot holes in everything that comes my way and make it miserable, and the guy in a business will go to another spot. Mm-hmm. And so you can either be business friendly or you can be business unfriendly, but I don't find that government does a very good job of running businesses or creating businesses. And so I think that our money is better spent ensuring that we have a structure in place and that we support businesses that we want with adequate infrastructure. And so I was very happy to read this, but I was intentionally staying away from your process so I didn't skew it.
Right.
So I thank you very much.
Can I
Yes.
add something? I mean, the reason why I love that it was called the Economic Health Task Force is because we were also inviting our businesses to look at how they could get support for looking at efficiencies, so not just expansion. And we're talking about infrastructure, which is expense, but I'm also talking about ways that we could help them manage their expenses by looking at efficiencies, and that can come in a lot of ways. It could come through equipment, but it could also come through process, you know, and so I'm hopeful that businesses that are watching this, you know, may seek that as well in terms of the revolving loan fund and its capacity. So I just wanted to say that.
Suggestion.
I'm excited by this. Several things that I really like is having additional money for infrastructure projects to leverage, but also to review it on a yearly basis, to, as RJ said, to keep it flexible, but also let it focuses on the businesses being the innovators, which I think is exactly where it should be. They're the best ones at it. And I agree that the more we can stay out of that innovation and just be their support system, the better off the town is.
I have nothing to add.
Okay, then, do we have a motion to support?
I'll make a motion to, oops, hang on, I'm looking at the wrong thing. To accept the final recommendations of the Economic Health Task Force.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Nick,
Oh,
I think Victor.
okay, Victor, thank you. Yeah, and the only last thing that I'd comment would be, do we have a process moving forward then? Would that committee be the ones that would just develop, maybe advertise, review nominations for that health committee?
I think that would be the next step, is setting that up and maybe charging that committee with some of these tasks.
Assuming everyone's willing to continue to work to flush out a couple of those
Oh,
things.
you want us to work on that?
That's what he's
That's
asking.
what I'm
I was like,
asking.
well, Heather, you just agreed.
Before we,
We disbanded our committee.
We did,
So,
okay.
yeah, they did.
well, then we'd have to
I'm
bring.
talking about to the new
bring
committee.
We'll bring it to the select board, but, or we could create.
I thought you meant like the.
I was about to stop
Yeah.
you. I'm like, don't say yes.
No, you have.
Oh, I thought he was talking about setting up this new committee. No?
No, well, yes, to set up the new committee. I didn't know who we had to set up the new committee
Okay.
process, because we're approving this. I'm just trying to make sure I understand everything we're doing moving
And
forward.
what
Some
are
of
the
them are
next
pretty
steps?
cut and dried, but creating an economic development committee, it creates, that's an action that we have to do. I mean, and then that committee can work to do some of the other things, like what are the key things that we need on the website and
Well,
et
we can
cetera.
just advertise probably and
Yeah.
have it
Are
come
we
here.
gonna do it from the select board?
I
then?
think
Yes.
so.
Well,
There's a lot
whether-
of nodding on that side.
Whether, say, Kathleen, I mean, it really comes from the town, and would be to advertise for this committee and maybe working with Heather at least to figure out what the advertisement would say. In other words, we were saying that we're creating this committee, these are the things that the select board has approved, the recommendation of the committee, and these are the things we'd like the committee to do, and perhaps with a copy of this, and that.
It's no different than in a lot of the other things we've
Okay,
created.
I'm just making sure
Yeah,
I
no, it's a good-
understand what we're.
It's a good question.
All right. Okay, any other questions?
Let them go. Let them go.
So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have one opposed. The committee is now disbanded. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work and. Kevin? Yes.
So will the select board then, I mean, I don't know, you've got all sorts of people who want to be on this committee. Are you going to look for a balance of skill sets, or, I mean?
We'll have to,
It
Victoria.
isn't just anyone who wants to control.
No.
And there were, we did make recommendations that they, have a background in business, economic development, or finance, and if it is, if they are gonna be looking at, revolving loan applications, we do want people, that have good experience in that. Thank you, Bill and Nancy and RJ and Robin for coming.
Kevin?
Brian. Catherine Nichols, the chair of our board, is also here. You're welcome to come up, but you don't have to. So I'm here to make a recommendation or pass along the library board's recommendation for awarding the contract for a feasibility study. A year ago, we asked for funds and they were approved in our capital fund, $20,000 set aside for this feasibility study to see how much money we could raise privately for renovation or expansion. And then a few months ago, I came before you to present what that RFP would look like. And that was approved, and so
RFP.
request for proposals. And so we issued that request for proposals, and we received 4 proposals back. 2 of them were significantly over that $20,000 budget and didn't add any additional value, and so we didn't move forward with interviewing those 2 firms. 2 firms were competitive and competitively priced, and so the library board interviewed 2 firms and unanimously recommended hiring CPG Enterprises to move forward with our feasibility study. I have copies of all of the proposals. The main reason we felt like this was the right firm to move forward with was that they had significant recent experience with more than a dozen public libraries, either conducting similar feasibility studies or consulting on fundraising. So they brought a wealth of experience in Vermont to the process. The amount, the contract amount would be $22,100, and the library board had previously agreed to add anything in addition to the $20,000 from their funds to make the contract good. So we're coming before you to ask that you approve awarding the contract to CPG Enterprises in the amount of $22,100.
You might give her name.
Oh, Christine Graham is the principal for that firm.
Okay.
I'll move that. And just won't restate it all because you just said it.
Sure.
Second.
Moved and second, okay. I have, the 22,100, 225.5 is what was on their
Yeah.
quote, but you're able to do a contract with them for just the 22,100, or?
So there's a bit of history here, Chairman. We had awarded a contract for the roof and attic renovation a few years ago.
Yes.
And at that time, the board had requested that we award the amount in the minimum that was needed, and then come back if there was additional funds needed.
Yep.
But we could certainly award it higher than the 22,000 since it's a range. I was requesting the 22.1 because that was what I thought was the practice of the board. So either way, I think would work.
And you're expecting 20,000 from the board, and the remainder's coming out of the library board's budget?
Yes.
Regardless
exactly.
whether it's 22,100 or 25,500?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
How would you prefer that as far as your budgeting, Kathleen? Would you like us to
Either
approve
way,
up to
they would have
25.5 now?
Yeah, I think you 20.
No more than
5.5.
25.5 with
Like a-
20,000 to come out of select board budget?
So you could do a
That way we won't have to come
not
back.
to exceed.
It's already been included in a capital improvement budget.
Right,
So, yeah.
that's why I'm just looking for
Clarity.
simplicity, and seems like you already kind of understand, you've got some ranges based upon their time commitment on some of these, so.
We could do a not to exceed, and that way if it comes in lower, then you just adjust it down and everyone's good.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
Could you
I'll
amend
amend
yours?
it to not to exceed 25,500.
You okay with that on second? Okay. Now, any other questions other than financial now?
I also have some personal news to share.
Let me just vote on this,
Oh,
I
I'm
know,
sorry.
I don't want to take away from your personal news, so let's,
Oh.
all in favor signify, do you have?
Sorry, just a quick question. How long will this take? Like, what,
We've talked to Chris, we took the opportunity to talk to Christine. She thinks it will take 8 weeks
okay.
total.
Okay.
from the time that she comes on board to the time when she gives us her report.
Okay, thank you, I was just curious if.
Sure.
Yeah,
It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fast.
cool. Sorry.
That's all right, so let's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Now drop the bomb on us, huh?
I've accepted an offer to become the director at the Shelburne Library, the Pearson Library, and I'll be starting there in early September. As many of you know, I added a member to my family, and the commute from South Burlington has just become untenable. So I just wanted to let you know personally and also share what a pleasure it's been working here now in my 5th year with all of you.
So does this mean you'll be working at both libraries? We've just locked the doors,
I do
Kevin.
not accept this motion.
I'm seconding her, do not
No,
accept.
we do not accept this.
He's not asking.
I know.
We'll see you next week.
What I want to say as the chair of the board, we were all surprised and disappointed, and yet not, maybe disappointed but not surprised, because family is so important, and there's,
Yeah.
Kevin is a superb director. We have been really lucky for 5 years, and I think he's doing the right thing for his family. I hate it, but I do the same thing. And I also know that you're not that far away, so we can ask advice from you.
I'd be happy to help as I can.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The board will meet tomorrow morning to talk about the timing of the feasibility study. This is a little awkward. But we also have so much momentum, having spent 3 years building up the building committee and its plans, and the architects coming forward with their plans, which you have seen, that we really think that this isn't going to stop us. We think that we will be able to overcome the challenge of not having Kevin with us anymore, but still doing the feasibility study, and then seeing where that takes us. But the board is really pleased from the building committee's work of 3 years of the momentum we have now built on this year.
We hope we can rise from the ashes, but we'll miss you, Kevin, and from the select board, and I'm sure the entire town. We've really appreciated the energy and professionalism and everything you've brought to it. I do believe there's a real estate agent nearby that can help you find a home if you decide you want to move to Middlebury, relocate. If at any time I could probably, I think I know a few, but we really appreciate everything you've done and wish you and your family well.
Thank you, Brian.
So happy for you.
I want to emphasize too, I mean, you've just been phenomenal professional, and I'm glad to count you as a friend. So, I mean, you've done wonderful things there, and I understand why. You know, you have a wonderful spouse and a little girl that wants dad around more, so I get that. But
And vice versa.
yeah, well, that's a good thing. So, but thank you for everything, and best of success.
Thanks.
Yeah.
My
Good
friend.
luck.
May I ask a question? Because, Kevin, you're a town position, right? How do we think about a goodbye? Goodbye, not celebration, but a goodbye honoring of you before you go, or sometime after you've gone, when you would come back?
Well,
how do you
we're
do that?
meeting tomorrow, so we can discuss that.
Good.
I'm meeting with Catherine tomorrow morning.
We'll figure something out for sure.
Yeah.
And we have
We're
a
always
very
up for
nice
a party.
reception room.
Yes. Good.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jim.
Here tonight with an update on the construction zone up the street and with an update on our larger project as well. There's been a development there. So, first with the temporary bridges project, the Main Street Bridge, which served our town so well for 100 years, is gone. If you've taken a walk up the street, you'll notice that there's a large gap where the bridge once stood. Kubricki has been on the job site here since Thursday of last week. I think they're doing an excellent job of sticking to a schedule and actually trying to beat the schedule that's been laid out here. So right now we have a maybe bridge being assembled on the north end of Main Street, and that'll be launched later this week. A lot of prep work is taking place around that to prepare Main Street to reopen on Saturday, August 5th. Big day on Thursday. On Thursday, Kubricki will close Merchants Row for 2 weeks. It'll be closed from top to bottom, and we'll undergo the same process that Main Street has with the excavating of roadway, demolition of the bridge, putting in a bridge abutments, and eventually the construction of a new baby bridge and launching of that as well. So the end date is August 12th. That's a Saturday. That's the date by which Kubricki expects to complete work on the Merchants Row side. So we'll have about 8 days of downtown where there's no through traffic because both Merchants Row and Main Street will be closed. Again, what I see is high degree of professionalism on Kubricki's side and a keen desire to advance this project as quickly as possible. I think downtown we're holding our own. People certainly had to make adjustments on the traffic side and on the pedestrian side in terms of getting around. It took a couple days, but I think that by and large people are getting where they need to go. I think that the businesses benefited from a Kuwaitan Parents Weekend that had a lot of people in town this past weekend as the Main Street Bridge work was going on. And so I'm hopeful that as we move forward here, the downtown businesses and restaurants will continue to kind of manage through this 3-week process. So that's where we are. I'll continue to provide my daily updates, and then I'll give you the kind of day-by-day update on what's going on downtown and how folks are faring with it. Okay. At your last meeting, you gave the go-ahead to an Actor downtown shuttle service that's now just completed its 3rd day. Ridership's been slim. I think it's been a challenge to get folks to kind of change habits and to take, whether they're an employee in town or they're coming to shop, dine, to take care of business in town, to go to one of our 2 lots, Mill Street and the town swimming pool, get the shuttle, come into town, and ride the shuttle. So I'm continuing to push particularly for employees in town to use the shuttle. And I'm thinking that when Merchants Row and Main Street are both closed, there may be more incentive to do so. So this is a 3-week run. We'll see how we are at the end of the week. We'll evaluate with VTrans, and we'll continue to work with Actor and with the Better Middlebury Partnerships, who's involved as well, to promote the service and give it a fair run, which was the goal here with it. The information booth right across the street. I know Susan and Laura are familiar with it because they both worked it. Thank you for that. I think, has been a success. Again, the Better Middlebury Partnership has been instrumental in kind of setting things up there along with the Addison County Chamber of Commerce. It's great to have these 2 kind of pivotal groups involved and to have the Neighbors Together group, and in particular the Parish of St. Stephen's, provide such strong volunteer support here. We had 54 2-hour volunteer shifts, and we have now filled 53 of those. So we're really pleased with the level of volunteerism in this community and the support that the community is showing. It's great to be able to steer visitors toward the right places and to inform them about the project. We've also had a number of locals who wander up and ask what's going on with the project too. So it's another way to keep our own citizens informed about the project. A local graphic design firm, The Image Farm, Matt Haywood, and his wife Pam Haywood have created some excellent marketing collateral, from maps to the signage that you see out here, to signs I've posted at either end of Printer's Alley showing folks how to get to Marble Works from Main Street and to Main Street from Marble Works. So we've got a good dedicated team working to manage through this 3 weeks of construction. The big event will take place downtown on August 2nd, and Karen and Amy and the Better Middlebury Partnership team here are putting together a great event from 4 to 8 on Wednesday evening that will feature an opportunity for kids to have their picture taken inside one of Kubricki's excavators. Nick will be lining up to get his picture taken there as well.
Do I get to wear the hard hat, Jim?
Well, the way first 300. Now it comes to kids, so you guys line early.
What time's it start?
4 o'clock.
Again, I think that shows what a great partner Kubricki is. They jumped on that one right away, sure. This is not going to be the large excavator, it's going to be the kid-sized excavator, but it'll still be a lot of fun.
That one?
Yeah, so you'll do well in that one. Live music, food, popcorn. You're the best. What else, Karen? Am I forgetting anything else?
Cotton
candy.
Entertaining, kids' activities, games, and then we're partnering all of that with a midnight stroll. So the stores are all staying open until 8 o'clock, and there are various sales and pop-ups that are happening in most of them, in addition to the raffle that we're doing, which you all heard about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question? I've missed something. Why August 2nd?
So we're doing one of our movies that night as the midnight.
At the park?
Yes, and so the music and movie series, and so we figured it was a nice, since we really had to choose a night during that week when both of the streets were closed. We thought that would probably have the most impact in terms of having the street closed. And then, because we had an event going on already, we figured it would be a nice segue over to watch the movie. So.
Right.
What's the movie?
Shrek.
So the idea there is come downtown, spend your money with our merchants, okay? And so if you spend $25 or more and show us your sales receipt, you enter to win enter a raffle to win a prize. Thanks to the select board, that prize will be one grand prize of $500. Middlebury money gift certificate, second prize of $250, same thing, and then five $50 gift certificates as well. So incentive, thanks to the select board, to come down and enter a chance to win some great prizes, and more to the point, to show your support for our community during this 3-week construction project. So those are just some of the things that are happening that are community driven. You know, V-Trans is a great partner, Kubricki's a great partner. At the end of the day, these events, these initiatives are community driven and showing Middlebury's support for its own during this project. So that's the update on the temporary bridges. At your last meeting, you wanted to, while I was on vacation, you wanted to have a letter written, a letter of support out to the community. And I did not get a chance to kind of create a draft on that until later this afternoon. So that letter is kind of still in the works, but I think it is important for the select board to make a public statement to the community through the Addison Independent and through our listserv, a letter of support for our downtown business community. So I will work with you all to get that done post haste, and so that we can get that in front of the community. Okay. And then on to the larger project. This project will wrap up in mid-August. It's really kind of the dry run for the large project. And an update on that. On July 12th, the V-Trans completed its work on the environmental assessment, the revised environmental assessment that incorporated their response to all the comments that came in from the public hearing, whether it was in person or by email. And a lot of analysis and revision went into the environmental assessment as a result of those comments. A lot of thoughtful work took place. And on July 12th, V-Trans completed the process and submitted it to the Federal Highway Administration along with its recommendation. I received notification that late this afternoon, V-Trans posted to its website the Federal Highway Administration's determination that the project would receive a finding of no significant impact on the community. So an environmental impact statement would not be required, and that the project was free to move forward. Just as I said, this was very late in the day that I received this notification. What I will forward to you through Kathleen is a 13-page recommendation from V-Trans that was signed by Federal Highway that summarizes the intent of the environmental assessment, the results of the environmental assessment, and Federal Highway's determination that the project, again, will have no significant impact on the community of Middlebury long-term, and that it should move forward.
Excellent.
And this, so
It's
this.
good news.
Wow.
So this completes a process that started in December, when V-Trans and Federal Highway Administration said it's time, we need to take a timeout and to go through the environmental assessment. My personal observation is that it was a good thing to take that time out, that a lot of good work went on in taking a hard look at all the environmental impacts of the project and assessing them and putting in place mitigation for them. I think it also allowed some more intensive planning to take place to make sure that when we do push the button and start next year, that we're lined up, as this temporary bridge project was, to run in a very organized way. So, okay, so that's,
So does that mean we'll be on track then for,
The
like,
schedule.
there was some early stuff like this fall, and then next year it begins in earnest? I
The
don't
cur-
remember the exact schedule.
Sure,
but-
the current plan, Heather, has Kubricki back in town in the spring of 2018.
Okay.
So the fall, there will be no construction here from, according to the current plan, to work primarily on the construction of a new drainage system for the rail corridor. Having gotten an even closer look at that rail corridor during this demolition process, you know, I see the real critical importance of putting that drainage system in. So that'll take place in the spring, and that'll be the kind of the primary construction activity that takes place next year, and that will be centered on the old Lazarus Foundation in Printer's Alley, as well as in Triangle Park. There'll be a catch basin there as well. So not the street disruption that we're seeing right now, but kind of off the street in those two areas.
But I think to Heather's point, though, wasn't the plan for it would have been this year, or actually last fall, would have been to create the Hall Road that went to the back of the Battelle block, and it had that grade crossing further down.
Right.
So is that a not going now, that's going to happen as part of the spring work?
That's my understanding, that's all been moved to the spring, that the access road was to have been built this year before we entered the environmental assessment, and then everything got moved to 2018. I think that once, my guess is that once the V-Trans takes stock with Kubricki of the Fonzie, finding of no significant impact, they will look again at the plan and see how can we advance this project for Middlebury in a way that works for the town. It's a long time to wait from mid-August to April, say, of next year to move the project forward. So I suspect there may be some movement toward getting things done more quickly.
Well, I think this is really good news, too, about the Federal Highway approval. I mean, I think that says a lot about the quality of work that this present design team and this present V-Trans group put into it. So it's part of this dry run leading up, but if the rest of the project goes as well, the fact that FHWA approved it so fast, I think says a lot. So good, very good news, and I think I'm feeling very comfortable with this group going forward.
Good. It's been exactly 1 year since V-Trans came to us at the church in East Middlebury and apologized for the project having gone sideways with its schedule, right? And so that team that was introduced then, I think, has shown themselves to be a true A-team, and by that I mean a team of professionals who are truthful about what they intend to do, who are committed to Middlebury and to making this work for our town, and who do what they say. And
It's only been a year? Seems like it's been 3.
Yeah, it does seem like it's been a while, doesn't it? Yeah.
So, yes,
This is slightly off, I appreciate the communication that has been around this whole project and the daily updates and personal recommendations. But what I learned this morning from the update is that the cones on South Pleasant Street are because of sidewalk work. It's going to shut down parking and why are we doing this on top of?
so let me just bring you up to date on that. So we didn't find out about that. That was actually supposed to have been done prior to the project, but the contractor got behind. And now Dan and our Department of Public Works crew have worked with the contractor to slide it back, so they're gonna do it afterward. So, yeah, it just kind of cropped up, so.
Can I ask a question about that, though? Because and Dan's here, one of the reasons why we were doing that project is because of the stormwater runoff issue in that area, and I am concerned that there's no sidewalk for a couple of weeks in an area where there's all this new construction around the church and stormwater runoff issues. And if that can get taken care of, then I'm good, but it is one of the problems that you alerted us to back in the day.
Sure, just to help clarify, we were asked by the contractor for the Congregational Church to delay the contract work for North Pleasant Street so they could finish their project. So that was kind of in response to community needs. So that's one of the reasons why we pushed the contractor back.
Right.
So by delaying South Pleasant Street work from now until probably the last week of August, there will not be sidewalks and curb at North Pleasant Street.
I wish we had just not even engaged them beforehand and just put it after the project to begin with, but I am concerned, what are we gonna do about this lack of sidewalks and the runoff there? Because there's
Sidewalks on the other side of the street, isn't there?
Right, but it's the stormwater runoff there that's the problem, and why we wanted to put the new sidewalks in there, because the curbing wasn't there, that it all runs straight off down into the houses and the church.
Is it any different now than it was
It's a big,
before
there's
the
nothing,
sidewalks? Does it actually,
open
with all that
dirt.
big gravel though, it might even slow it down more than that?
Well, actually, we talked about that. There's a big seepage gravel bed there now.
Having just taken a tour out in East Middlebury and seeing the water damage and the fact that we keep having these rainstorms, I am concerned. So, I mean, we're gonna.
I think it's a risk though that we need to, I mean, otherwise,
not disagreeing with you.
you're shutting down.
I just don't want to upset the church at this time too, on top of it.
Well, if we did the shift for them, then I don't see how we'd be upsetting. If this was, the shift in the timeline was for the church?
They were trying to get their mortar work done.
Yeah.
And so they asked us to push back to July 3rd or 4th, and then July 11th, and.
I thought you said the contractor shifted it.
So there.
You didn't tell me the church shifted it.
Well, it's a combination of a lot of factors. Rain, and contractor was delayed at first, and then the Congo church said, "Hey, we're kind of running out of time. Can you delay it a little bit?" And so we're trying to work with people here to make this massage this process.
I think it's a risk that we have to take.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm asking, what are we going to do about protecting that area while this is going on? Because that's 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Well, it'll be August 14 when the contractor returns to South Pleasant Street, and he will do that section first, and then pour the sidewalks and curbing there because they're a monolithic
so we're
pour.
talking several weeks of it
Talking a
looking
month.
of just dirt and gravel,
Right.
and
Right.
we probably need some extra protection there, is what I'm trying to say.
We've been a month with just dirt and gravel there, so I'm not sure.
No, they just, I mean, okay.
And the contractor will have to maintain his work.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, And
Yeah.
and if there becomes an
I,
extra.
the hearing that the church changed it is new to me, so that's.
Well, it was their request to, give him more time to.
I hear what you're saying. You had, I was made to understand that it was the contractor couldn't get his equipment in time.
Early on, that was part of it, yeah.
And that's fine. We'll see what happens, okay?
Yes, so between you as the professional and the contractor's professional, I'm hearing you're managing a situation.
Well, the contractor's
you
gonna
can.
have to maintain it, and if
Yeah.
and because this basically amounts to a work shutdown,
Mm-hmm.
the contract ceases for timing. He has so many days to complete the work, so you do a work shutdown,
Mm-hmm.
and then in 2 weeks, you come back and you reactivate, and he gets those contract days to complete the work, but he's gonna have to maintain that, and I would think that if there was a considerable amount of work to be done, that he would request reimbursement for that, because we're asking him to move off-site.
But I thought you said the contractor was asking before, so if we've made accommodations for the contractor, then, and now,
This process today is, the town is requesting me to ask this contractor to suspend activities.
right, but a week or so ago, we were making accommodations for the contractor, so maybe we wouldn't get charged more because we made accommodations for them earlier?
I'm not following you.
I know, that's okay.
The one thing I would have liked to have seen is a perk diagram that said, if we shift your start date, you're gonna be into South Pleasant at a time when we already knew Merchants was gonna be shut down. We made that decision a while ago. And so, we knew the time when we did that we shouldn't, we're asking it now. I'm a little disappointed that this didn't come up previously.
So, can I,
Absolutely.
in infrastructure committee, when this was brought up that this project was delayed, I brought up that was a concern because of the railroad bridges project, and when we selected this particular contractor and the schedule that was put, we chose them because they could start and get this done before the railroad bridges. And I personally, hindsight is 20/20, but if the church was asking us to delay and the contractor was delayed in weather, I wish that we had considered delaying until after the bridge project. And I think that staff could have made different decisions there, but I know we are also trying to get the project done. So, in infrastructure committee, I did express those exact concerns that we not do this in the middle of this bridge project.
Yeah.
And I am still having taken that tour on Monday of what water damage does when left to its own devices. I am concerned about what that looks like, and if the contractor isn't responsible for that and they just get to walk away and we are responsible,
Could
that
cost us some additional.
worries me. So
Yeah.
the regret is there.
I
wish we had made another decision.
I don't think that it's a bad decision to shut the project down. I just wish we had thought about it a little better in the beginning. And I did, I was concerned when I knew things were pushed back, so.
See?
But the short answer is, we will not have both roads shut down at the same time.
No, my question is, what church are we talking about? If it's
Congregational church.
Congregational
But that's North Pleasant Street.
Yeah, but
Yes.
have you seen the sidewalk, the work they're doing there? That's what's driving the South Pleasant, same contractor. They're doing North Pleasant and then phasing to South Pleasant. And so they're getting ready to go to South Pleasant, but just at the time we're gonna shut down Merchants Row, so.
So I would like to thank Dan for
Yeah.
his efforts to shift this project out to accommodate the Main Street Merchants Row. There is, a lot of things we would have done differently in
Yeah.
hindsight, but it took Dan all day today to get this worked out, to get us a reasonable solution going forward.
And I think you get a fist bump on that because it's big because we were hearing from, I was hearing from people downtown, and I get the water concerns, but I also get the business concerns, the traffic flow concerns, because if you shut down too many roads at one time, it really could potentially have major impacts.
I appreciate all that. I just wish we
Yeah.
would have put a hold on it so it wouldn't have exposed the sidewalk at the same time.
You know, it seems to me that Dan has done a good job, and I rather think it's inappropriate to be telling him here that you wish he had done something different.
I wish I had made a different decision, is what I'm saying.
You don't make those decisions, he does.
Well, the
And
committee.
We talked about it in infrastructure
All right,
committee,
I'm just,
so.
this is not the function of the select board at an open meeting, and I think it's inappropriate to continue talking about this.
If I
think
could,
he's doing his best.
I apologize, Dan, I did not mean to.
I just want to, if I can just say, that there's a lot of moving parts here. And early on, the contractor was ready to go, and there were some issues getting structures ordered, and issues from the plant that he was going to get them from when they were promised, and he was a little delayed. And then the Congo Church contractor says, "Gosh, can you give me some time?" You know, so I'm trying to massage that. And we know there's Festival on the Green is coming up, and everything looks good. And then it just, we're trying to work. Jim came to me and said, "Hey, what can you do for me and help with these people?" So we're trying to make it work as best as we can.
So what can you do for the water issue, if anything at all, is what my question was in the beginning.
Well, Jamie, who is with
can I just,
engineering.
can we take this offline, because this is kind of a very pointed thing that's really more
Okay.
infrastructure
Yeah.
aligned? Because we're almost at 9 o'clock and I'm way behind. I'd like to recognize some things here. The Better Middlebury Partnership, his leadership team is here, and there have been some things that just popped up and came, and working with Jim, and it was just phenomenal. And I think everybody was really impressed that the town came, that the business community came together that quickly to put together a plan to support and drive business and help with wayfinding and just to create some community spirit around an otherwise difficult situation. And so, Amy and Karen, thank you very much. And I know we're going to continue to see great things coming out of BMP as this project, because we got the news tonight that the project is green lighted to continue to move forward. And I'd really like to see us continue to move. I mean, these are the type of things that can maybe help make it easier for people, especially people who don't understand our downtown, the tourists and everything, to realize that we are open for business and help them find their way to have still a very enjoyable time in our downtown and negotiate around some obstacles. And so, thank you very much. And Jim, working that daily newsletter we got to find that way to get every person who has email onto that newsletter, because that's really good information. I love how you put plugs for local businesses and you're sharing it. I don't know how you're determining which business to plug, but I got a movie I'm going to go see. I'm taking Nan to a movie. Result of it. So Marquee Theater will benefit. But anyways, great. And then on the public letter from the select board, I think let's work to get that done. But the other thing, now that this Fonzie is out, I think we should include that. It's because if we're going to put it in the Addis Independent, we should maybe we can include that. And I'm sure Mr. Flowers over here is taking copious notes, and we'll get that and we'll get it out so that everybody knows. But appreciate everybody working to make it.
I just wanted to say, I can't go into a business these days without hearing what a great great job Jim's doing. So I just wanted to sort of echo that and let you know that that is certainly felt everywhere that we go. So kudos to him. I think that he is totally in his element here, and he certainly found the right person for the job. And I just think he's doing a really great job. So
Right man, right time, yeah, yeah. And it's nice to have a guy who's a prolific writer and a good communicator at a time when you need communication, huh? So,
It's a community effort. I appreciate the opportunity to be a voice for the community.
so thank you. If there's nothing else, I'd like
Just
to move
one
on to
quick
Infrastructure Committee.
You want to move ahead. Is there any way we can extend the shuttle on the 2nd so that it goes later, so that people, are you working? Okay, good. That's all I want to say. Because I would ride it.
and as soon as we get the absolute okay, then we'll promote it.
Okay.
We just haven't yet.
Another
Thank you.
I
prize.
thought maybe you'd be driving an excavator to town.
If you do miss the photo op, though, hit me up.
Will you have hard hats for everybody?
Sure.
Susan, Infrastructure Committee.
Yeah.
You got a lot tonight, right?
We did a lot, so I don't want to say a whole bunch. I just want to see if people have questions. I'm assuming they read it. I'm assuming we don't want to get into the details of it. I'm not sure if there's any specific questions. I mean, I think
I thought we did the Helping Road bid already.
we did, and this is basically, I can let Dan talk about that in a second. But I do want to just sort of mention that I think there is this sort of, all this infrastructure going on at the same time that the railroad project is going on, and it's affecting each other quite a bit. And I want to be able to talk about that at some point, and how that works and how that looks, because there is some things that, you know, the Infrastructure Committee has worked really hard with Dan to get one thing, and then it has to change, and I get that. But at the same time, we're going into several years of this, and this is just the first one. And I really do think that we need to have more conversations about that, because it's boots on the ground now, that these things are going to affect each other, and there is going to be, sometimes the rail bridge project may win, sometimes infrastructure may win, and sometimes everybody wins and sometimes everybody loses. So, but I don't want to start a war between these things, but I also want to be careful about what we're doing, and I do appreciate Dan's work. I'm hard on him, but I also do try and tell you when I really appreciate your work as well. But there are times where we're specifically working on a project in a certain way, and it should be okay for us to talk about that. And I respect what you said, and I get all that, but this is the time to talk about infrastructure. So I figure I'm just going to say that in general. I think we can do a better job in the future of figuring out how to talk about things without bringing it to a select board meeting.
Can I ask?
I'm sorry, I just have to respond to that. Our standing committees are policy committees, and we have professional staff
Mm-hmm.
to initiate and carry out those policies. I feel that what you're talking about is micromanaging,
No.
which is not a function of the select board, and I would be very much concerned.
No, that's not
about
what I'm
this
saying.
time. Well, I'm hearing it like that.
And I understand that, and I'm trying to.
I'm going to object every time you do this, because it seems to me that what you're doing is really moving into the.
What I asked him was a question of how that was going to be there, and we can. I think I was misunderstood of what I was trying to say, and I agree. And so, and that's why I apologize, but I do think we need to talk about this in the larger picture, either off the select board or somewhere else. We have to figure out a better way, because I don't think these awkward situations are going to go away for Dan, and he's going to have to spend all day working on something. And that will affect things for him. And I am trying to think about it in a way of how we support his work from a committee standpoint, from a select board standpoint, and that's what I'm looking at. I don't think it's any easier for you.
The one question I would have for you is, or not question, the comment is maybe making sure, I assume you're plugged in with the rail project some, but just making sure, once they're boots on the ground here, that you're tied in with Wayne and you guys are overlaying. I would think that you guys would have to be deconflicting routes and stuff so that you're not impacting each other's project. So part of your plan, I assume?
Yeah, certainly next year when we get really into it, we really don't have anything scheduled in this area, in the downtown area. I mean, we talked about some water main issues, but I think that's still has to be sorted out. There's a lot of work to do on that. I have a meeting tomorrow with Aaron Guyette and a couple people and Bill Kernan about this Court Street bypass water main underneath the railroad. Try to sort that out along with some wastewater issues. So this will be one of the times that Aaron and I can actually get in a tight circle and sort some stuff out. So there will be some infrastructure issues that the town may contribute on with this railroad project, and maybe part of the Kabricki's work, but that still needs to be sorted out. And so we're just getting into that process of what's going to be town work, what's not going to be town work. It's just kind of starting.
This is the first one sort of that they've affected each other. Yeah. I mean, we dealt with Actor and the relocation earlier, so, and that sort of put that into infrastructure and going through that with the working group, so it's sort of the second one for us.
Right.
There was also some sidewalk work to do on Main Street that we've been talking about for a couple years too, so I don't want that to get delayed 3 years.
But we can work on that.
Yeah.
I really do think the things that we have to be able to talk about how the train project affects some of the other projects and how the other projects affect the train project, because they're not in isolated bubbles, they affect each other.
Right.
So
There's going to be plenty of times where there'll be, it's maybe a 3-year project, but as you know from construction, especially looking at this project, sequencing, it's not 3 years on Main Street. And so
right.
There's a lot of stuff that, as long as we're working together, and you and Aaron, or actually it'd be more Aaron probably as the project lead, as long as you guys have a good open lines of communication, I would think.
But also, for what you're learning from other towns, what Jim learns during that day, all these things affect everything. It's not just the two of them. There's lots of people affecting the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I've sat in on some of the early meetings already with Dan and Aaron and V-Trans, and looking at plans. You had Willie and Bob, and I see high level of professionalism among all of them, speaking the same language. They understand these projects. This is what they do, and I feel very confident that they're going to manage this well. I have complete faith in the professionalism we have here, and I let them do the job. Do the job that they're hired to do.
Yep.
So just to try to move the agenda here on this,
We can talk about.
help and
why
road
don't you talk about
culvert?
Sure. So it's on the agenda to award the bid. We talked about this at Infrastructure Committee, and the text is in the notes. I'm trying to keep this project moving. There are 3 property owners we need easements from. One on the east side and 2 on the west side. I was able to get 2 of those accomplished today. The third one is still hedging, I guess is probably a good word. But we have going on concurrently a wetlands permit, And that permit was submitted. Those 3 landowners had to have notification and sign off that they had received, that they had acknowledged that there was a wetland permit submitted that affects their property. That permit has a comment period of 30 days, which goes through August 21. At that point, the agency will award, or I should say, will approve a permit. I'm trying to hit the approval of that permit and board approvals, and if there's anything else that may have to go to infrastructure committee. Anyway, I'm trying to move it as quickly as we can. The real deadline now is October 1, and that's when Army Corps will say, get out of the stream. So my hope was that we were gonna get this done before school started. That's not gonna happen. So right now, I don't have a contract. I have a contractor that has a bid that we can approve. But I can't really talk to them about schedule. I can't talk to them about a temporary easement with one of the landowners for assembling the pipe. They may do it on the street, but there's certain things that we can't have a conversation on because I don't have a contractor yet. So we talked to the infrastructure committee, just how do we do this? And so when we left the infrastructure committee, the thought was that we not move forward with a board approval until I have the easements. So I have 2. And so I guess there needs to be some discussion of how we want to proceed.
So we've already awarded the bid on the pipe, right?
On the pipe, yeah.
Yeah, and so the pipe is being done, and everything else, so do we need to, are you okay with us awarding it, or approving it pending the final required easement?
If pending the final easement, I didn't want to move ahead without the easements being in place.
Yeah. So
So
can
it's a
we get a
conditional.
motion?
Conditional.
Conditional approval.
Yeah.
So what you could do is conditional and then authorize Kathleen to sign a contract if that, when that comes.
Right.
It may not come until after the wetlands permit,
Yeah,
but
when it comes.
when it comes, then
We need to be prepared, or we're gonna potentially lose the window to get it done this year.
there's the contractor will have bonds, he'll have to get ordered, and that doesn't happen until there's a contract. And so anyway, trying to,
So I'll move that we award a contract to Champlain Construction for the total cost of $139,001.45 pending finalization of all required easements.
Second.
Second.
Do we want to authorize Kathleen Ramsey in that, to execute the contract? Does that need to be included?
I think by moving that authorize her to do it
Okay.
once she's
We don't have
verified
to
that we
say
have
it
the final
specifically.
easements. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll second.
we got 3 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
That's
You're
good.
the third. Nick was first.
So I
Victor was
guess I know,
second.
I guess I know
wasn't
we
paying
have
attention to
a.
that.
so you were
Let's
concentrating on that.
everybody second.
Okay, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Victoria?
As a Hilton Road resident, I and many of my other neighbors would appreciate as much communication around this project as possible, especially if it's going to get into, the school is in session. I know the 3 landowners are aware, but a lot of people up road haven't been kept in the loop, and it would be really nice to know what's going on and how we're gonna deal with mail and how the school bus will, deal with this.
It changes it for the group, because the timeline that we gave them will be very different. So that discussion needs to happen with everyone there.
Anyway, yeah, more communication, just so we know what's happening, what the answers to questions. Thank
Okay,
you.
you're welcome. And I assume that the communication right now is, we're not sure on the timeline.
Right.
Probably. So we probably,
I mean, mail delivery will be at the post office. They've already told me that, regardless of the
Yeah.
year, time of the year.
regardless of the timeline.
They will not deliver. Yeah. So, the one to sort out is a school issue now.
Thought they did it, rain, snow,
That's in the movies. I
sleet or
think.
rain, or hail, whatever, yeah, okay. Okay, good point, Victoria. That's something that we hear on every project, and one of the things that that's why we really want people tied in with the email blast, because it's a great way for us to
Update.
be efficient in our staff time. And so encourage,
Yeah.
okay. Next.
Potential sale of the Middlebury administrative offices at the U.S. Forest Service on Route 7 South. So we had discussed that property a couple years ago as potential, if you've attended the tours of Department of Public Works, you know that the building has some structural deficiencies plus space issues,
Physical
plus
site, yeah.
storage for vehicles, and then there's also storage issues that we have around in our facilities, still things being stored in the old wastewater treatment facility that we need to find a home for, and it would be nice just to find a home for them and properly decommission the old wastewater treatment facility. So when the availability of selling this property came up, we would like the board to support having the staff investigate the suitability of it. I don't know what's involved. I don't know if we could even get it together in time, what the cost would be, whether we can afford it. I don't know. But it's sort of
It's
an
worth a look.
opportunity. It's too ideal not to investigate. And I think it would be, I was saying this earlier today, it might be traumatic to actually have it all fall in place, because then what are we gonna do? But at the same time, to miss the opportunity to even know what those numbers are, or if we can even handle it, then the answer may be no. We can't get it together in time. And I'm okay with that. At least we try.
Yeah, we haven't even been in the buildings, so
Yeah.
we don't,
That's part of,
there's value to it.
The location
Yeah.
to DPW and the salt shed is just too close to let go.
One of the things
pleasure of the
that
board.
one of the things that could possibly sweeten this, and I don't know if there's any, I don't think there's been any discussion yet, but that is a very busy, active ranger station as far as information. I think it might be their busiest for the National Forest. So if there's a possibility that we would allow a ranger to be there as a tenant, that might make that partially somewhat appealing to the prospect of that, because I would not want to lose the
I think
ranger presence
they've
in the town.
already, they're negotiating their presence somewhere else.
Well, if that's the case, fine, but I think we want to make sure, the key is we want to make sure we don't lose that position here.
Yeah, I think they're, from what I can tell, they're negotiating that with,
Okay, we just want to make sure of
in
that.
other ways.
Okay.
So,
Yes. Chamber of Commerce, I think they're
Yeah.
gonna try to locate partial hours in their facility somewhere.
We just- Yeah, as long as we continue their presence here.
Pleasure
So
of the board.
I would love to make a motion to support the Infrastructure Committee's request for town staff to investigate the suitability of the U.S. Forest Service Administrator's Office parcel on South Pleasant Street. South Pleasant
See
Street?
the- see the
South,
typo.
on Route 7, south as possible expansion space for the Department of Public Works. You did that just to get me. See if she's reading it ahead of time?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Questions? None? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Closeout of Sand Hill Bridge Project.
So the state has sent us a maintenance agreement for the North Branch portion of the Sand Hill Bridge project. This is something they're basically turning over to the town to maintain now that the Sand Hill project is complete. Dan and Bill reviewed it, and
It's a little sliver of property, and I think that comes from the approach that was requested by some of the residents who live up the hill to make that access a little more
trailer-friendly. So
Oh, is that why they're doing it?
that's what it amounts to.
But you don't have any issues with it? Pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the V-Trans maintenance agreement for a portion of North Branch Road at the intersection of Route 125 as part of the closeout of the Sand Hill Bridge project.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Closeout of the Sand Hill Bridge project.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's like
Takes
50
a
years
while.
in the making.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, Kathleen, license agreement for
The tower.
Bob Bell.
Right, so this is a very minor amendment to the agreement, basically a change to improve the top 20 feet of the tower to make it more durable and safer. So it's straightforward. This really is at the request of our public safety officials who had heard some concerns on towers in the northern part of the state and asked Verizon, Bell Atlantic Mobile to take a look at the construction of the tower.
Did they say when they would?
I don't have any
Yeah.
information on the schedule.
So it's
Okay.
going from a triangle lattice to a pipe.
Okay.
And supposedly from the distance, it'll look the same, similar appearance, but it'll be stronger, and it'll allow them to clamp the antennas. And so,
Sounds pretty straightforward.
if there's no questions, pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the amended license agreement with, so it's Bell Atlantic. That's interesting that still, term is still there. Mobile Systems doing business as Verizon Wireless, dated June 1st, 2003.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Green Mountain Power easement to service Patel Block.
Yeah, Green Mountain Power has asked us for a very small easement area for the area behind the Battelle block near our sewer pump station. I have reviewed it with the water and wastewater personnel, and it is acceptable to them.
Questions? Pleasure of the board.
Okay.
I would move that we give conditional approval for the easement and authorize Kathleen Ramsey to sign the easement deed pending verification that the proposed easement will not conflict with existing town water infrastructure.
I think she said it was okay, so we don't need to, they've already given their clearance,
that?
so
Okay, I'm
we-
sorry.
we can
I
set them
didn't-
free.
I guess I didn't hear it. Okay. Is my motion out of order?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
just
okay.
modify yourself.
Okay, all right. Well,
I would ask for a pending, the 24 VSA 1061 notification process, if applicable,
okay.
to be added to that
you can-
agenda.
I'm very happy to add that. If I
I'll
can
I'll
say.
second then.
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
Okay.
Okay, hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay. Application for Addison County Regional Planning Commission Transportation Advisory Committee grant.
So Jennifer has prepared a proposed grant application for Transportation Advisory Committee grant funds to study the location of the railroad, a proposed railroad platform for passenger rail. This is one of the board's priority items, and we have, in the past, we had a study done in 2003 that would be to refresh this, and perhaps incorporate some work from the college that Nick has suggested as far as studying, adding to the study for potential sites. This is the same source of funding we use for the Creek Road erosion study.
I'll move that we approve the FY 2018 Transportation Planning Study Grant application and authorize, I guess it's Brian, to sign the application on behalf of the town of Middlebury.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
Just a quick one, is there a match for that?
No.
So that's, okay, thank you.
There isn't it usually for the TAC, right?
Right, not for the TAC.
Okay, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? So when I spend money, there's not a match requirement, so.
I gotta figure out how to do that.
It's just the, this is the official signing
Okay.
ceremony. Supposed to have a pen that goes. Okay, so just to update the rest of the board on the town college lunch. And we talked about, we updated the college and talked about the Main Street Merchants Row bridges, went through the timeline on the temporary bridges, relocation of the bus hub, and they had plugged into that, as you remember, the actor discussion with the working group, Dave Donahue and Matt Curran had plugged in with that group, provided input and support for, putting it onto Academy Street once they understood the rationale, for moving away from South Pleasant. So I think that was an effective town and the college working together. And they have really tried to support the town to the point that the president of the college sent out a shop local to all of the staff and everyone through their email blast. And they, it was actually where I lifted the idea and asked, told Lori Patton that was a great idea and something that we should follow suit, because there was the type of thing, thinking out of the box, things that we can do to just kind of support our own. Susan reviewed the upcoming infrastructure projects so that they were aware of them, and provided them a really nice update. I assume you had typed it all up.
I did the first one and Dan modified it after that, so.
It was really nice. It was a full page. It just shows how many things we have going on, talking about the sidewalk work on North and South Pleasant, talking about Exchange Street, and then stormwater and curbing and road work that's going on, Hillcrest Road, Creek Road alternatives, brought them up to speed a little bit on the alternative study, and then we didn't really get into it, but so that they're aware, that they know that the water and sewer rates are starting, and that they're being reviewed. You reviewing them each year now, or?
Well,
You guys have got a
hopefully
major review going on.
major review going
Yeah.
on. Yep.
And drinking water state revolving loan for Exchange Street and Route 7 South. I don't remember that.
Well, we're hopefully working on, we've prioritized that Route 7 South and Exchange Street are the #1 projects, and exploring how we can we plug into the drinking water state revolving fund, or do we have to fund that in a different way? And so that's part of the big the big stuff we're looking at right now.
Okay, good. Then the combined sewer overflow abatement and Halpin Road culvert replacement. After going through that, we talked about the college's support for the town financially, different things that they're doing and ways that they look. We have a guest who apparently the outside doors are locked. We talked about broadband, looked at they actually have a really great resource for us in David Provost, having gone through something similar up in Burlington with the Champlain College and how the town gown there worked together as a committee to improve broadband, and something that is very important as we see for being competitive on a business commercial basis region and attracting new businesses, and talked about how they look at the contributions to the town and what criteria they're using, and their climate economy, and because we have VCRD coming, we're the next on the list. They're down in Pownell now.
Yep.
And so Laura brought them up to date on that, but at the same time, they brought us up to date that they'd signed the agreement, and they're continuing to push for getting the gas project going at the Goodrich Farm that would then feed renewable gas into our gas pipeline. And then Lori Patton talked about improving opportunities, increasing opportunities for internships and things that the students would work with businesses and within the community. So a very good exchange of updates, nothing really momentous as far as there was nothing that needed decisions or follow-up at this point. I think we're tracking on a number of the projects, and the Middlebury Inn fed us a very nice lunch. So it was great to continue the dialogue with them. I think the process that was put in place years ago is continuing to work and be of benefit to both parties. Questions? Hearing none. Laura? Check warrant.
Okay. Were you on the verge, Nick, of saying something? Okay.
No, at this time, no.
At 9:30? No.
No, in fact, I realized that, no, I had absolutely no.
Okay. All right. I have reviewed the check warrants, and I move that we approve the total expenditures of $423,328.30, and the amount, well, that's the amount, and that consists of $317,067.55 of accounts payable, and the rest is payroll for the period from July 12th through the 25th.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Kathleen, Town Manager's Report.
So very briefly, yesterday we had a very well-attended site visit at the Middlebury River, taking a look at the damage from the July 1st flash flooding. Walked all of the way from Cone Drive up to the Lower Plains Bridge along the banks of the river, and residents along the river showed us things of note and how the river has changed since the last time we were there. So they'll be getting a full report on that out later this week.
Can I just add to that?
Yep.
I'm not technically in East Middlebury, but do have property that borders the same river, and do have also some damage there if you want to know about that.
Please let me know. I am
Would you
gathering
like
that
some
information.
pictures?
There- she's
pictures and
gathering
any
it.
estimates of damage, please, anybody forward those to me.
They're reporting it to FEMA, so.
I understood from Susan's pictures and stuff that we did lock out as far as the section of the river along Creek Road did not erode that any further. Is that what it was?
Yes, so that was
So we were fortunate in that
fortunate in
section.
Creek Road, but pretty unfortunate in East Middlebury.
yeah.
Lots of property owners lost between 5 and 25 feet of their property. Just a lot of drop-offs, a lot of undercutting, a lot of big trees in the river that they're worried about all along. So it was extensive. Second picture, yeah. So.
And the work that we've been working on with that, does this impact that, or?
I think the engineers, walking back with them, they're gonna take a look at it and see what changes that might make to their second level of engineering.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it will impact it. So.
Like, get there, fast.
Yeah, like, and I think some of the new rules too, of that V-Trans isn't clearing out as many trees up in Ripton anymore, and so those trees are traveling down. So things like that, how those might affect the plans might be interesting too. So lots of more things traveling. A lot of rocks traveled this time too. So, and you can hear them kind of clinking when it's all happening. It's like marbles, yeah. Except for when you go outside,
Really large
it's really
marbles.
big marbles, and it's scary. So, and there's a lot of very nervous residents. So, it'll be interesting to see what they come back with.
Yeah, is there anything to do in the interim while we're waiting?
Nope, not really. We're
There's
not,
nothing.
not allowed to do anything.
Sundance, right?
Yeah, pretty much, and that's, I'm really, each day we have a couple days of sunshine in a row, makes all the difference, because that constant rain, the ground has been so saturated, there is no other place for that water to go.
No, it's a very powerful force.
So, yes, Sundances would be great.
Okay, and then, as a reminder, reappraisal is starting next month, and we're going to be advertising for an office assistant and scheduler to support that process. The funding for that position is available in the reappraisal fund.
Yeah, I saw that ad.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Board member concerns. Nick?
I was actually going to mention this last time, and then weather and the airline changed that. I realized I was actually going to, when we took off, probably flew over his new house. But I do want to thank Jamie Gaucher for the efforts he's did over the last 3.5 years. I think we learned things about our town, and gave us some different ways to think. And I hope we take what we learned and move forward as we continue on our other endeavors. So, thank you, Jamie. Congratulations on your new job. Didn't have to change many letters on the business card. And also best to the wonderful wife Elizabeth and fine daughter Claren as they move on to their new adventure.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Like we just noted, water is a very powerful force, and I think that your earlier concern about the dirt in front of the Congregational Church, it's one that I've seen other people worry about too, like where is that gonna go? And even as homeowners, how are we gonna manage our stormwater? And there are some really good resources, and you can find them at the Addison County Regional Planning Commission website. They've got some really, really good documents if you're interested in following up on how to protect your property from these stormwater effects. So gutters, drainage, just lot of plantings, other measures that could be taken, because we're gonna continue to see these rain events that gush with a lot of force.
Victor, nothing. The only thing I've got is, I'd like to pass kudos on to Public Works. Next time you get together, could you let them know that the work that they did, out East Munger Street, especially the hillside and everything, that's the best ditching job we've seen in years. Very, very nicely done, and it crowns the road. They've recrowned the road. We haven't had that, there in a while, and so it washes every time we get rain. And now I would think it would hold for a little bit. And I say that, I'd kind of just taken it for granted driving on it, but I actually heard from a couple of the residents. John Frieden was one, he called me today, so it was most timely to remind me of the good work they did. And so we need to, I think,
I think Kathleen will get to it faster than I can.
Yeah, but they did a very professional job. And the other thing that was impressive, because I know people like to pick fun if they happen to be driving, you see them in the vehicle driving around, but they really tended to business, and they worked every day. Now, I was gone to a meeting a little bit, but the days, I saw them at 4 days, and they worked every day until they got the project done to the point where they were, because we've getting rain so much, and so that they wouldn't lose what they'd done in the project, they worked until late in that day, 7 o'clock, 6:30, whatever, to make sure that they got the stone in and got it seeded and bales in and stuff, so that it was sequential and that, they didn't leave it open. And so, also very impressive. So I just, I think, little kudos when they're due are probably good. And I know that the residents out there appreciated it. So, we'll see you all. When's our next meeting, Kathleen?
August 8th.
August 8th.
August 8th.
August 8th.
Not quite sure where July went.
It's away, just away. This, I think, goes back to Kathleen.
Yep, I gave her a copy already. I just wanted you to see it.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, we'll see you all August 8th. That's the first day of field days. That's why I had that in my head, so.
So I can keep